Hey everybody, back again with another card for the day. Gonna be doing Marvel's Sauron from Marvel Comics Savage Island. And this one's gonna be pretty fun. Um, this is one of my absolute favorite Marvel villains. And like the Puma, I think this dude's a little underrated. Um, he is a character of the times. He is definitely a late 80s, early 90s type of character. And I really enjoy drawing this dude. I mean, what artist doesn't like drawing dinosaurs, right? I mean, even if it is a mutant. So, this is a little different for me because this one is live to the public, not just um, my fans and friends list. And I'm getting used to doing these for everybody on that scale. Thank you for all the likes and support and views and all that. But it's definitely about the artwork. That stuff lets me know that you guys like it, and I appreciate all that. Thank you. Um, what I've got going on with this one right here is that I'm going to be penciling and inking it. I will be inking it later in the day because I have another uh, live to do here shortly that's going to be special for you guys to get in on something really cool coming up. And I just want to put that out there. It's for a buddy of mine's Kickstarter project, and I just want to throw it out there. I'm going to be doing something special with him for this thing to close it out in the last few hours here of that promotion. And it'll give you guys a chance to get something really, really cool that you wouldn't normally get. So, with that said, though, this guy right here, man, this is one of my favorite characters because one, I love this Savage Island, the Savage Land Island series from Marvel. That storyline was phenomenal. Everybody in it was just great, and it was just outrageously cool. No qualms or problems there. I don't think anybody that read that series didn't like it at the time. Of course, the X-Men were at the prime of their game. I mean, they had, the best writers and the best artists of the time all over the place, and there was no doubt about it. Because that's right about the time that Chris Claremont and sorry, I was watching my monitor there because I had pop-ups going on. I had to close my windows. Um, I had to close some tabs off, so it didn't distract me. But yeah, this character was just all over the place for the X-Men and was a real pain in the butt for a while. And I really enjoyed watching these stories play out, especially him and Wolverine going toe to toe. You know, with all the revival stuff coming up in the late '80s and then the early '90s transition to the comic bubble, which I've talked about numerous times on my podcast and videos here and all of that. Everybody knows pretty much where I stand with that. It's just, uh, yeah, that was a prized time to be in comics, and everybody didn't. We're saying flat out, we don't know what's going to happen, with this big boom coming up. And even as a kid, I was like, man, this is not going to make it. I was highly concerned about it even back then, and when it busted, I was just heartbroken because I knew comics by the time I was old enough to get into comics, because I was a young teenager when the bubble was prime. I was just like, man, I'm not going to be able to make it because there's not going to be anything left. But comics are thriving and making a huge comeback, luckily for us. And we're slowly but surely building up new fan following, and hopefully going to get a stabilized market and a bubble to come back. It will never be collectible like it was. I think we're moving into a different market, which I won't go into that, but I think we're moving into a different age of the market where the collectability of comics in trade form is going to be the key thing. I don't think they're going to be, you'll get your monthlies and stuff, but I don't think you'll get them as collectible much more than they are at the price point of where they're at, unless they're limited edition or special edition kind of things. And I think that's sad, but it is true nonetheless. And of course, print on demand could prove us wrong. We could go into a different bracket with it, and making things in limited run could make them even more valuable. You never know. It could take a turn for the difference, but we'll see. As for this guy right here, I think the love interest where he came and was looking for a wife, he came to America and was looking for a wife in the X-Men and trying to pick one of the Lady Mutants off the cast, and had an interest in Storm and Rogue there for a while, and was using his telepathic powers to control them and whatnot, and had Storm on the verge of going back with him, and had a high interest in Rogue at the time. I just found that hilarious, but yet it was a great storyline. I mean, it was something that no one had fathomed before, short of monster movies, because they had Marvel's Dracula, the Tomb of Dracula, which is Marvel's version of the Hollywood vampire. And they had a great run with him and Storm, going back and forth for about 20 years off and on. Talk about a bad relationship to wash up to. That was a big one for me to follow through on. And then that reminded me of that when this story actually came out when I was a kid. And my brother and I were latchkey kids at the time. So, that was a big thing. I got comics and he got his G.I. Joes and stuff. And I got to read a lot of stories that, if parents knew what was going on in those stories, I probably wouldn't have got to read a bunch of them. I mean, they just didn't know because I didn't tell them. So, it wasn't exactly good reading for an 8 or 9-year-old kid when everybody thought comics were just for kids and they thought they were funny. So, you guys will have to tell me your stories about that too. I know everybody's got some good ones. Let me know your comic book stories like that with your parents and stuff. What's the one that you pulled over on them? Because I know everybody's done it. I used to collect, and still till this day collect, the big black and white magazine format Conan books. And I used to love those things. But if my mom had realized what I was reading at the time, she would have never let me have those. Just because of the fact of all the violence and, the barbarian bloodshed and all that mess. And then, Conan, being the guy he is, girl after girl after girl, it just cracks me up. But, yeah, it's awesome. This character, being able to draw him for you guys is really cool, because he's coming off really, really fast, which I knew he would because I like the character. But getting to do this for you guys is just as fun for me as it is for you guys to get to see these cards when they come back out. And since we're doing a public one today, if you guys haven't seen it yet, I'll break out one or two of the other collection and show you a couple of benchmarks that you'll want to watch out for when I say that I'm going to do something with them, because you'll want to be able to get a hold of these, believe me. I mean, I'm not being arrogant by that. I'm telling you flat out, because of the quality that I know I put into them, you guys will want to be able to get access to these if you're able. And that's not a pre-sale or anything like that. I've got something special in mind for them that isn't necessarily about selling them off individually and making a buck. So I do this for the love of it, for one thing, with you guys, to get the artwork out there. And then there is a principal reason behind it, but that won't be revealed just yet. So I'm going to shade that in right there with the wing there, because that's the underside of the back tip of the wing on that arm that comes out that way and fans out like a bat wing situation. And I'm going to leave these spots open for now. I'm going to draw in this other knuckle. I've gotten so fast with these. I've been very blessed and fortunate to be able to speed up my artwork, which is why, a big, huge reason as to why I do these. It's because of the fact that I draw so much during the week. I do these dailies, and it gives me a chance to kick something out really, really quick. And polishing up my practice and my speed here. Putting in that knuckle there. So we have that other finger right there. Oh, looky, it's a finger. And it's not mint mean. Let's see here. How we doing? So I've got the comments open, you guys. How are we doing? Let's start detailing this out. Black that side out because we won't be able to see that. Now, here's the top of his clavicle right here. I'm going to round that off so it doesn't run right up into the shoulder and look weird. And we've got the back side of that top neck muscle right there. And then I'm going to start detailing this up a little bit. Because he's been living in the Savage Land for a while, so he's a little scarred up now and again. And he has these 3 slashes right here, which people forget to draw these all the time when they draw him. And you got to remember, Wolverine stabbed him in the head. So if you ever think about that and you get the chance to draw this character, whether it's for Marvel professionally or not, make sure that you add in these little details, because it's a big thing. Nobody does it, and only the top guys really do, and that's the reason they get all the work, is because of the fact that they put in these little quirks and these little details that nobody else puts in the time for. Granted, you have to be careful not to overwork it to the point where it looks mudded up, but the principle here is to shade it in and make it look more three-dimensional and lively than it would otherwise. That's actually a ridge there. It has a lot of texture to it. I try not to over detail because, like I said before, if you've seen any of these before, I try not to over render because I don't want to get semi-realistic or try to get, you know, where the human style texturing kind of thing on flesh and stuff. I try to get it as dynamic as possible without drowning it out, because I don't draw that way, and there are a lot of guys out there that do it a lot better than I do. And I have friends that try to get me to draw that way, to put more detail in, but I have a very color dependent style. And I like to leave it that way to where it's nice and open, so I don't drown it out. I mean, once in a while you'll see some really cool details come out, but that's just a personal preference. So if you're trying to get into the industry, um, don't let anybody talk you into anything that you don't feel comfortable doing, but yet still reach once in a while. That way you don't burn out and not have anything change. Greg really did a good job with his transition. Greg Capullo, as an example, did a huge, massive style change between um, the fantasy book and Spawn that he did. Um, then he made that transition over to Batman, and I tell you, the make in his artwork is just totally different compared to what it was. And I mean that's par for course because it's an evolutionary process. But if you look at page by page by page, if you took a page of his Batman stuff, his fantasy stuff, his Spawn stuff, and then his work back in the 90s on the X-Force book, it's night and day. It is night and day. My personal favorite run, even though his Batman stuff is really, really good and really clean, I still like his Spawn stuff better. Just because of the fact that it was a grittier style and it looked more natural and organic to me in comparison to some of his other stuff. But, you know, everybody has to go their own way, and that's the level of his voice right now and where he's singing at. So, more power to him. Now I'm going to detail out these wings just a little, but I don't want to go in and like I said, muddy up the water, because we have a different thing going on with these texturally than the skin. It looks a little bit different. Reason I make these quick slashes like this is not to cut into the card, because these cards are not, they're 100 point. It's just they're cut so small, they bow up under the pressure and they snag, and I don't want to tear them, because I love using this as a medium. Now I'm going to darken these eyes up just a little bit and shrink them down because I'm making him in a flying stance rather than the gaze that he has. So we'll get that look to it. I want to bring this down into the face a little bit. This dude looks jacked, depending on who draws him. He's got a lot of grief. I used to draw, I used to love to put little breaks in it, you know, like he chipped his jaw or something like that, you know, like chipped his beak or whatever. But then I got away from that because he has a mild healing factor, and a lot of people don't talk about that. So I try not to do anything that's going to majorly change him on a permanent basis because it heals. Even though he does have a scar on the skin, that underneath is all healed up, where, you know, that Wolverine puncture was. So you got to think about stuff like that. But you got to put in those details, you know. And since this is public now, I just wanted to let you guys know, you know, if I sound like I'm talking a lot, it's because I am, and because the people that are normally here have asked me to speak up more about the process. So that's why I'm talking through this. Because otherwise, it's just 20 or 30 minutes of me, you know, just sitting there and drawing, and you don't want that. Trust me, it's boring. So I'm way too animated for that. So. And for the people that know me, they know this is quiet. If I talk to you, this is quiet, and they know it. So they're kind of getting a pleasurable reprieve when I do that. I'm talking slow right now in comparison, because with my marketing and stuff, I'm always just constantly doing something and driving the force forward. So okay. Now I'm trying not to make him look overshadowed because I don't want him to look leathery. Even though I want the skin to look thick, I don't want it to look weathered. There's a difference. So and he hasn't asked yet, but I'm good because I know he's gonna ask. Matt, if you're watching, dude, I didn't see you scroll through except I saw you join a little bit ago. Just for the notification. Just because he has no shirt on, no, I'm not gonna draw nurples. So there it is. It's out. I'm not doing it. He's done the way the pec curves. It's down underneath anyway, so we wouldn't even see that. No biggie. He likes to tease me about that because I have youngsters watching, and all the little kids are giggling right now if they're watching. I try to keep it very clean, very PG, because my little girl watches this stuff, and I don't want to have anything to explain later. But yeah, this is gonna be about it, actually. I'm gonna put in a couple of scratch marks here, and that's where we're gonna leave it. We're gonna leave his skin pretty clean. I did decide I want to put in a little bit of a scar right here. Maybe a liver spot or two kind of deal. And that's it. We're going to call that Sauron. Now, I'm going to grab real quick out of the drawer over here for you guys a couple of these to see what's been going on and to let you know why we are now taking these public for everybody to get to see. There's the card from yesterday. If you didn't get to see it, it's in progress of Wolverine and Sabretooth together. And I'll show you a couple of these coming up. There's my cable triple card set, just so you can see that one coming. And then lastly, if you haven't seen this big dude, the Juggernaut. He is one of the card sets that I've been working on as well, so you guys can check that out and see that. And I'll run through a couple of more for a minute or two since we've got the time, and then I'll go ahead and cut out. Let me grab these here. This is the first one in the series that I did. There's Venom, there's Iron Man. I'll run through a couple of these. The Punisher, the Green Goblin, Conan the Barbarian, one of my favorites. Selfie with Plastic Man right there. Back when I had my head bald during the summer, the earlier part. There's Ghost Rider. Let's see, Nightcrawler, Rocket. You guys know who that is. Kraven the Hunter holding Spider-Man by the nugget. There's Wolverine there. Just a couple of more of these real quick. Then I'll get out of the way. Some of the ladies that I did. Catwoman, Poison Ivy, Batgirl. That's one of my personal favorites. They're sliding down my board here. Spider-Woman, Supergirl. Let's see. There's She-Hulk, Wonder Woman, Killer Frost, Storm, Rogue, Starfire, Raven. That's one of my personal favorites. If you haven't seen that one, there's my Flash, Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Lobo, another favorite, Booster Gold, Robin, Nightwing, the Penguin. That's one of my favorite all-time DC villains right there. Let's see, Mystique, Fire and Ice originally, which is who Killer Frost turned into. Spider-Man versus the Lizard right there. Beast hanging out in the lab upside down. Forge with Bishop leaving in the background right as Nimrod strikes. We've got one of the two Archangels that I did on that day. I doubled up. Colossus, one of my favorites. My Deadpool card playing a joke on Yoda. That was a classic. That one was one of my favorites as well. This is probably the best one of the females so far. Mary Jane, everybody knows who she is. Let's see, Scorpion, the Shocker, my take with the helmet. Mr. Freeze, this is an awesome one. Let's see, there's Doc Ock, Black Widow, Cap. Then we have Kitty Pryde, Captain Britain, Mojo. We have Bishop, Warpath, Domino, that's a personal favorite card. Martian Manhunter, love that guy. And the Nurples are there. Yeah, I did it. Black Cat, Madam Web, my favorite incarnation of that character. A lot of those don't work out the way people want them to. She's kind of like dare I say and give her that much credit, she's like the Doctor Who of the Spider-Man universe for Marvel Comics. She transitions so well as an interdimensional character and pops off. Got the Vulture, which I did right a couple of days right before the Spider-Man movie came out. Kingpin, Daredevil from Netflix. That's a personal favorite of mine. I really love that card. That was a fun one. Bullseye and Puma. Now the rest of these that I have a couple of more, but I haven't caught them up yet and colored them up yet, so I've been getting ribbed by people for that. There's Strong Guy. These are kind of mixed up. There's Boomer, or Boom Boom as some people call her. Electro doing a selfie, and he fried the guy that tried to photobomb him. We thought that was fun. I've got Psylocke. My take on Jubilee, with her being a little more grown up and mature. Gambit's coming down the pipe. I'm going to be coloring him up this afternoon. There's Professor X, my take on that one. There's Magneto, so you guys can see that. Pyro, one of my favorites. That's my incarnation of him. I always thought he should be more technically bound because he can't create the fire, but he can control it. Mandarin, this is the Marvel Now version of Mandarin in the classic suit, the classic ceremonial Chinese robes with the ancient palace behind him, and then Fin Fang Foom sneaking up behind the buildings in the modern black tie and suit version, because he's now trying to take over basically the city where Tony Stark lives and trying to be a real estate mobster kind of personality now. That's my take on Toad. If you guys are interested, that one was a fun one. That was one of my last before I went into the public realm with doing these for you guys where everybody can see them. But you know, I've been building these up for a while, and I'm roughly 70 something cards in. So again, there's Sauron for today, and that's where we're at. So I appreciate you guys checking it out and hanging with me for a while. I'm gonna see who's on the list for tomorrow very quickly, so that you guys can come back. I will post this public, so if you're doing it, follow me so you can see this, and I'll have it public for you so you can go from there. Let's see. It's going to be Firestar. It's going to be the classic Firestar from the Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And a little bit later, I have, for my buddy Mike and his Kickstarter, I'm going to be doing a 3-set card for his Kickstarter that ends in a few hours. And we've got something special for you for going on with that, so be sure to come back and check it out later. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. As always, check you later.